When I was in elementary and junior high, I was just a clueless country kid. I hung out with my two close friends, A and B, and the three of us messed around every day, living pretty recklessly. Me and A had been completely abandoned by our families, but B's mother always paid attention to him. She was strict, but in the end, she'd do all sorts of things for his sake. During our third year of junior high, B had a huge fight with his mother. I never got the details, but he apparently hurt her really badly, emotionally. She was left with torn clothes, messy hair, a vacant stare, and was sitting there like a lifeless shell. That's when B's father came home. He ignored B and walked quietly over to B's mother. Seeing her in that state, he said to B, "So you've become the kind of person who can trample someone this horribly. Don't you realize how much your mother cares about you?" He was hugging her as he spoke, not even looking at B. B, acting like he didn't care at all, told him, "Shut the hell up. Maybe I ought to kill you, huh?" He didn't want to listen. Still, B's father showed no reaction, just continued calmly, "You think there's nothing in this world that can scare you? Is that it?" B said, "Hell no. If there is, I'd sure like to see it." His father paused, then said, "You're my son. I know exactly how worried your mother is about you. But if all you can do is stomp all over her like this, I have an idea. And I'm telling you this not as your father, but as another man entirely. First, let me say, by telling you this, I've accepted that you might die. If you're okay with that, then listen." There was apparently some intense aura in that speech, but B just responded with, "All right, let's hear it." His father said, "You know that restricted area in the forest? Go in there, deep inside. You'll figure out the rest once you're there. Then try acting like you are now - see if you can throw a fit in that place." We lived near a small mountain with a spot at its base, something like a mini sea of trees. The mountain itself was easy enough to enter, but at some point in the forest, there was a fenced-off area you weren't supposed to enter. It was like you draw a big square for the forest, then a smaller circle inside it where entry was forbidden. That fenced section was about 2 meters high, strung with thick rope and barbed wire. It also had all these white paper strips - some unique sort of ritual shide - and tons of bells in different sizes, all tied together. Because the fence only enclosed a certain portion, the layout was uneven. The whole thing just screamed that it was not normal. I'd also seen shrine maidens gathered there on certain days, and on those days the whole area was off limits, but nobody really knew what they were doing. There were lots of rumors. The biggest one was that there was some cult brainwashing facility back there. But the location was a real hassle to get to, so hardly anyone ever went. After telling B all this, his father just led B's mother upstairs without waiting for a reply. B left home and met me and A. That's where he told us everything. A said, "Wow, your dad must be dead serious if he's telling you all that." I said, "They say there's a cult hideout, right? Maybe he wants you to get caught and brainwashed. That's scary enough. So, what now? You really gonna go?" B answered, "Of course. It's just my old man's bluff. We figured it might be fun, so we all decided to go together. We grabbed some gear, and around 1 in the morning, we headed out. We arrived with excitement, shining flashlights as we made our way into the woods. The path itself was okay for walking, we were used to wearing Tabi boots anyway. But it took about 40 minutes to reach the fenced area. We were only 5 minutes in, though, when something weird happened. Almost the moment we stepped into the forest, we heard a noise from far away. The night was silent, so it really stood out. B noticed it first and said, "Hey, do you guys hear that?" We all stopped talking and listened, and sure enough, there was a soft rustling, like something dragging dead leaves, and an occasional snap of breaking branches, coming from somewhere distant. It was faint, so we thought it might just be an animal. We kept walking, not feeling too spooked. About 20 minutes later, B picked up on something else and stopped A and me. He told A, "Walk by yourself for a second." I asked him, "Huh? Why?" B just said, "Never mind, just do it." I walked ahead alone, then came back. B looked deep in thought. We both asked him what was up, and he said, "Shut up, just pay attention and watch." He had A repeat that, "Walk away, come back," a few times. Then we realized the noise was matching our movements. If we walked, the sound walked. If we stopped, it stopped. It was like whoever was making the sound knew exactly what we were doing. That gave us a chill. There was no other light in the forest except our flashlights. The moon was out, but the thick trees blocked most of it. Sure, it made sense someone could see our flashlights, but even we could barely see each other in the dark. So how was this person - or thing - moving perfectly in sync, with no light source? B got pissed, saying, "What the hell, is someone tailing us?" I said, I don't feel them getting any closer, though. It's like they're staying at the same distance. Indeed, ever since we first noticed it, the sound stayed equally distant, neither closer nor farther. I said, maybe we're being watched, and A added, sounds like it might be a cult with weird surveillance gadgets or something. It seemed like just one person following us. We decided not to be reckless about finding out who it was and kept an eye on our surroundings while moving on. Eventually we reached the fence, and the whole idea of that mysterious sound went out the window, because the fence itself was so strange. We'd never seen it before, but it was beyond anything we had expected. At that moment, a thought struck me -one that made me realize this place was not normal. Even a bunch of punks like us, who laughed at ghost stories, couldn't deny something otherworldly was here. It felt extremely dangerous. I asked, are we supposed to break this fence and go in? Anyone can tell this is messed up. B snapped back, stop whining. Don't chicken out on me. Me and A were freaked out, but B started attacking the fence with our tools. The pounding and cracking noises blended with the jingling of countless bells. We hadn't expected it to be this tough, so our gear just wasn't good enough. The fence felt unnaturally sturdy, like it was made of a special material that wouldn't budge. In the end, we had to climb over it, using the rope as footholds. It wasn't hard to climb, but once we got over, we all felt a suffocating pressure, like being locked in a cage. We hesitated, but we were already in too deep. We walked on a bit more and realized something else. The weird noise that had been following us was gone once we'd crossed the fence. We noticed it in the back of our minds, but the atmosphere around us felt so heavy that we were focused on that. Then I said, could that sound have been stuck in here all this time? There's no gate in sight, so maybe it couldn't come this far. B argued, that can't be. We noticed the sound way before we got here. How could something inside this area track us so soon? Even though B made sense, after seeing this fence, we were too creeped out to dismiss it. Me and A felt sure something supernatural was going on, but B stayed cocky. Ghost or not, if it can't get past this fence, it's no big deal, he said, moving onward. We walked another 20 or 30 minutes, until we could vaguely see another fence on the far side. That's where we found something truly bizarre, 6 specific trees, each bound by a Shimanawa rope, and those 6 ropes linked the trees to form a rough hexagon. Proper ritual shide were also hung there, different from the ones on the first fence. And in the middle, there was a small box like a shrine donation box just sitting there. All 3 of us just stood speechless. Me and A especially were freaking out. Even as dumb kids, we knew Shimanawa served a sacred or ceremonial purpose. This had to be the reason the area was off limits. We'd come to the worst possible place. I said, this is probably what your old man was telling you about, and A said, no way I'm going on a rampage here. This is so obviously bad. But B just scoffed, we don't know it's bad. Let's at least see what's in that box. Could be treasure. He slipped under the rope, into the hexagon, and we followed, mainly to stop him if he tried anything stupid. The box was rusty, likely from rain and wind. The top had a mesh-like lid, but there was another board below it, so you couldn't see inside. The sides were drawn all over with intricate designs that looked like family crests. Every one was different, no repeats. Me and A tried not to touch it, warning B to be gentle, but he poked around anyway. The box seemed locked to the ground. It wasn't especially heavy, but it wouldn't lift up. We looked for a way in and found that the back panel could be removed. B crowed, hey, the back part comes off. We can look inside. He took the panel off, and we peered over his shoulder. Inside, in each of the 4 corners, was a jar that looked like a plastic bottle, each containing some kind of liquid. And in the center, there were toothpick-like objects, about 5 centimeters long, with tips painted red, arranged in a weird shape. We'll show it here as a text overlay rather than reading it out loud. We couldn't figure it out. I muttered, what is this? Some kind of toothpick? I pointed at the jars, look, there's liquid in here. Creepy. B groaned, we came all this way for a few bottles and toothpicks? Great. Me and A just gave a quick glance at the jars, but B actually picked one up and sniffed it. Then, as he went to touch the toothpick cluster, his sweaty fingers stuck for a second, and he accidentally shifted their shape. The instant that happened, there was a massive clanging of bells jingle jingle jingle. Coming from deeper within, where the opposite fence was barely visible. We all yelped, looking at each other in panic. B shouted, hey! Who the hell's there? Knock it off! And ran toward the noise. I yelled, idiot, don't go that way. And A yelled, B, stop. It's dangerous. We scrambled to follow, but B halted abruptly and shone his flashlight forward. For a second, we thought he was messing with us, but then he started trembling. We went closer, asking, what's wrong? That's when we saw what his flashlight was illuminating. At the base of one of the trees, hidden in the darkness, a woman's face was peering out. Half her face stuck out, not squinting or shielding from the flashlight. Her jaws were parted in a grimace, teeth top and bottom fully exposed, her eyes unfocused. We screamed. Not sure who started, but all of us lost it and spun around, running for the fence. Our minds blanked, bodies moving on pure instinct. We dashed to the fence, climbed it like mad, jumped down, and made for the entrance. A was so panicked he couldn't climb properly at first, so I shouted, A, hurry. And B yelled, get over here. Which only made A more flustered, but he managed eventually. As he finally reached the top, me and B were no longer looking at him. We both stood shaking, sweat pouring off us, too shocked to speak. I noticed and looked the same direction. Along the line of fence toward the mountain, that same thing was clinging to our side of the barrier. We had thought it was just a face, but now we saw a bare upper body with 3 arms on each side, using them like a spider, clinging to the ropes and barbed wire, mouth agape, moving toward us. It was sheer horror. I let out another scream, jumped from the top, and toppled onto us. That snapped us out of it, and we all ran, not daring to look back, sprinting with everything we had toward the entrance. It felt like we ran for hours, though it probably wasn't that long. When we reached the entrance, we saw a group of people. We froze for a second, thinking it might be that thing, but realized they were just regular folks. Relieved, we ran into them. They're out, someone shouted. Wait, did they really go past that fence? And go tell the wife, now. They crowded around us, but we were so dazed we barely understood them. They drove us to a community center that was used for village events, even though it was 3 in the morning. Inside, I found my mom and sister, A's dad, and B's mother. Even my mom, who had practically ignored me for years, was crying, and A said later his dad had a look on his face that he'd never seen before. B's mother was just glad we were alive, thanking heaven. Then my mom smacked me, and A's dad hit him, but they also said warm, comforting words we'd never heard from them. We spent some time with our families, and after that, B's mother spoke up, apologizing. She said, "This is all my husband's fault, and my fault as well. I'm truly sorry," bowing over and over. A's father said, "That's enough, ma'am, everyone's safe," and my mom said, "Yes, it's not your fault." We just watched, dumbfounded. It was late, and we were all relieved to be okay, so the meeting ended without real explanation. The next day, close to noon, my sister woke me up, looking as tense as last night. She said, "B's mom called. Something's wrong." I got on the phone, and B's mother was frantic. She yelled, "B, something's wrong with B. What did you do there last night? You didn't just go beyond the fence, did you?" She was hysterical, so we couldn't really talk. She hung up, and I hurried to B's place, where A arrived as well. B's mom explained that B had come home and then suddenly started screaming his arms and legs hurt, stretching them out straight, flailing in agony, saying, "It hurts, it hurts." She could barely carry him to his room. He kept screaming all night. So she called us, thinking we might know something. Upstairs, we heard him from the hallway, "It hurts, it hurts," over and over. We went in, and he was on the floor with his arms and legs stiff and straight, rolling around in pain. We asked him, "What's going on? Hang in there." But he didn't even look at us. We went back down, and B's mother quietly said, "Tell me exactly what you did there. That will explain everything. What did you do last night?" We knew exactly what she wanted to hear, but we were so hung up on what we'd seen that it was hard to recall what we'd actually done. After thinking it through, we realized the only unique action B took was messing with that little toothpick shape in the box and not putting it back. We told her. She went pale, pulled out some document from a drawer, and made a phone call. After talking for a while, she came back and told us shakily, "They said if we go to them, they'll see us right away. Pack your bags. I'll call your parents. Just come back the day after tomorrow." We had no clue what was going on, and when we got home, our parents simply said, "Go with her, no questions asked." 2 days later, me and A went with B's mom. B had already left the previous day. We traveled out of our prefecture entirely, taking a bullet train for several hours, then a long car ride, ending up in a mountain village so remote it looked like a painting. We then went farther still, to a huge old estate on the outskirts of the village, with outbuildings and a storehouse. B's mom rang, and a tough-looking man in a suit and a slightly older girl dressed like a shrine maiden came out to greet us. The man said he was her uncle, and the Miko introduced herself with a name like Aoi Kanjo, which I wasn't sure how to spell or pronounce. Seemed like a special name indicating her family's secrecy. They took us to a wide tatami room, where the man said, "The boy is resting now." "So you two are the friends who went with him?" B's mom said yes. He asked, "Please tell us everything, in detail." We described it all. Then, when we mentioned the toothpick shape, the man suddenly roared, "What did you say? You didn't move that thing, did you?" He almost grabbed us. The girl, Aoi, stopped him in a tiny voice, saying, "In the center of that box, there was a shape formed by small sticks, right? Did you touch it? Did you change it?" I admitted we did, that it got shifted, and she asked who did it. We said it was B. The man sighed and told B's mom, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but your son's probably finished. His symptoms could have had other causes, but I never imagined he actually moved that formation." B's mom said, "No," and just hung her head. We felt the same, speechless. Seeing our reaction, the man sighed again and explained what we'd actually encountered. He said it's commonly called Shu-ri-dara or Kankandara, among other variations, basically a sort of myth. There was once a village terrorized by a giant serpent. A special family of shrine maidens known for divine powers was asked to help. A particularly gifted Miko tried to slay the serpent. She fought bravely but was eventually devoured from the waist down. Even so, she kept fighting to protect the village. But seeing her half-eaten, the villagers decided she couldn't win, so they made a deal with the serpent. If it left them alone, they'd let it devour the Miko entirely. Because the Miko was powerful, the serpent hated her, so it told the villagers to chop off her arms to make her easier to eat. They turned her into a limbless Daruma, and the serpent ate her. The village got temporary peace. Later it emerged that this was all part of a plan by her own family, which consisted of 6 members at the time. Soon after, the serpent vanished, and people in the village started dying one by one. Some in the village, some in the mountains, some in the forest. Each corpse had either the right or left arm missing. 18 people died, including the Miko's entire family of 6, leaving only 4 survivors. The man explained that the box we found is used to enshrine or pacify that entity at set intervals, each time with a different caretaker family. All the family crests we saw were from past caretakers. A committee of families like his oversees it. People living nearby just get a warning about the place and a contact for emergencies. The man said B's mother had called them, so they'd agreed to handle the matter. Aoi said that the 6 ropes and 6 trees represent the villagers, the 6 sticks represent the Miko's family, and the 4 jars represent the 4 survivors, while the arrangement of those sticks represents the Miko herself. Nobody really knows the deeper details. Possibly the 4 survivors invented this ritual format to tame her vengeful spirit. The man added that in his family's history, anyone who managed to exorcise a Kankandara died within 2 or 3 years. Most direct participants met the same end. That's how dangerous it is. Then he told B's mother, "If your son hadn't moved the sticks, maybe we could have dealt with it. But now it's hopeless." B's mom begged him to do something, saying it was all her responsibility. She wasn't crying. She seemed more determined than anything. He said, "We want to help. But if he changed the sticks and saw that thing?" He asked if we'd seen the Miko missing her lower half, devoured by the serpent. Me and A were confused because we only saw her upper body. That shocked him and Aoi. The man said, "If he moved the sticks, you should have seen the lower half." Aoi asked how many arms she had, and we said 6, 3 on each side, with no lower body. The man pressed us to be sure, then turned back to B's mother, smiling, saying, "Ma'am, there may be a chance." He and Aoi explained that the Miko's curse can strike in 2 ways, altering the shape that represents her, and actually seeing her true form. Normally, if you alter the sticks, you inevitably see her true shape. But somehow, we didn't see the full Kankandara version, so presumably B didn't either. That meant it wasn't trying to kill us. Just toying with us. Since the real Kankandara hadn't appeared, B was just being tormented by the Miko's playful side. The man said they could probably help him, though it might take a long time. Learning B could be saved took a huge weight off our shoulders, and B's mom looked so relieved it was almost heartbreaking. The man and Aoi relaxed, too. He said, "We'll take the boy officially. I'll explain everything to you later. As for you two, Aoi will purify you, then you can go home. Don't be so reckless next time." After we talked a bit more about B, his mom stayed behind, and we got purified and left. We weren't allowed to see him or learn exactly what the ritual involved. We never saw him again. Don't know if he was still enrolled in our school or officially transferred, but apparently he didn't die. He turned his life around and is doing fine now. For the record, B's father never showed up once throughout this entire ordeal. Who knows what he was thinking? A and I settled down not long afterward. We had many reasons, but the biggest was seeing how B's mom handled everything. There's a bit more to it, but basically we learned how hard it must have been for her. It made us realize the strength of a mother's love. After that, our own parents started connecting with us a little more, and we naturally quit doing stupid stuff. We also found out that the shrine maidens we sometimes saw were from the family that acts as a consultant. Kankandara, despite being so dangerous, is also seen as a kind of deity. Supposedly the giant serpent was a mountain or forest god, and once a year they perform a ritual dance and recite prayers. Also, the creepy sound we heard that night was probably Kankandara moving around inside the fence, though it usually won't appear unless you disturb the sticks or break the seal. They also said the caretaker chooses a specific zone in the forest or mountains, measured down to precise numbers, and sets the boundary there. Kankandara can't leave that. But if you put up a fence, it can still cling to the outside, just like we saw. That's about all we learned. Soon after, they apparently moved it somewhere else. I never checked, because I never wanted to go near that place again, but about a year later I heard they dismantled the fence, so presumably it's sealed off in some new location by now.